Our mission, our goal is to be able to provide fully legal, above ground psychedelic therapy. And we can do that. Everything that you're going to be seeing here in this presentation, the videos that we're going to be showing, fully legal medicines, above ground work that people can do in their private practice. And our goal is that, our kind of this idea that we did not get into this field to put band-aids on profound wounds. And we don't have to, right? We have these incredible tools of being able to operate very directly in people's subconscious programming levels of their childhood using these medicines. And we can do it safely, legally, effectively. Okay, so what I thought we would do is begin with really watching videos in terms of what this work looks like, because no matter how much I describe it to you, you need to see it to really get a sense of what's going on here. And so I thought I would just give you a couple of tips on sort of what to track and before watching a PSIP session. A couple of tips that will help orient you to what's going on in these sessions. So the first tip is that how we are working in this model, and I think generally how psychedelics work, is that we are accessing an archaic consciousness. And there's actual neuroscience behind what I mean by that term, archaic consciousness, which we'll go into in the presentation. But essentially, for now, think of it as an unconscious dream state that we're accessing here. Now, this is somewhat unique from the general direction that modern Western psychology tends to go. We tend to move towards objective reality. We tend to want to stabilize clients by having them have a strong foundation in reality testing and an objective sense of reality. Whereas in the psychedelic state, the psychedelic therapy is not working with objective reality. It's working with a very subjective reality state. So what this will look like is how this archaic consciousness is expressed in these sessions is what I would call as a visceral signal from within. Right, so we're not going to transpersonal space for this. We're going to a very embodied experience, and that process shows up as a very clear signal that arises from within. And I think another way of describing that is as a subconscious intelligence. Yeah. Point B, the signal operates through reenactment. If you have trauma in your life, which is most of us, and certainly most of the people we see in therapy are, people with pretty complex PTSD, this signal, this subconscious intelligence is very interested in resurrecting the scene of the crime. Right. So think about like we all are walking around with our scenes of the crime. And what's happening in these sessions in the room is that through regression, somatically, the scene of the crime is being resurrected. And, there's different players typically. If it's a relational wounding, there's different players in that scene of the crime that will also be resurrected in different ways. Yeah. So again, through regression, the process takes people back to that place where they got crushed. And if it's a single event trauma, like a car accident, okay, it'll take you back to that single event trauma. But for many people, it's not a single event trauma. It's, something that happened repeatedly over years through developmentally sensitive windows in our childhood. So it takes us to that theme of the scene of the crime, as it were. Point C, the thing to track here is that there's always at least 2 layers of reality that are always playing out in the PSIP session. Yeah. So there's present moment reality that, this person's in a room, they're an adult, they're in a therapy session. And then there's the past reality. So it's a little, we call it the PSIP dance, because here's present moment reality and here's past reality way back here. And usually this reality way back here is inaccessible to us. It's hidden behind dissociation, or it's non-declarative in various ways, meaning that if this happened to you when you were quite young, you might not have any capacity to consciously access what this is. You might not have any language for it, right? But the thing is that it's still there and it's still creating symptoms in people's lives. Yeah. So one of the things that we're looking to do in the PSIP model is we designed a container that purposefully takes this reality and pulls it to the foreground. right? So it's not hidden anymore. It becomes foreground, it becomes visible to the mind. And I think most importantly in this model, it becomes visible to your nervous system, which knows what to do with it. It can't do anything with it if it's back here, hidden in dissociation, if it's just not accessible to us. So in a way, where you can say what we're looking to do is kind of purposefully set off the trigger. So normally when you're in, when you're in a relationship and something happens in that relationship that triggers something from childhood, the same thing is happening, right? This reality is coming to the foreground all of a sudden. We're doing that very purposefully in a very well-held container in the PSIP model. Okay, last slides before we get to our videos. Point D, right? The focus in PSIP is not the medicine. All right, so this is not a sitter model. This is a fully developed, comprehensive psychotherapy model that's designed for the psychedelic state of consciousness. So our focus, again, not the medicine, our focus is on the container, meaning the relationship, the nervous system pathway that the medicine will move down. These are the kind of things that you will not see in the videos. The background work, the container that's holding this process all together, you're not going to see that in the videos because we're just showing you what the processing looks like in the videos, right? Another way of saying all of that is that the interventions and the mechanisms of healing in the PSIP model are not dosing oriented, meaning that, but a lot of times what happens in sort of transpersonal work or the sitter model work is, when somebody hits a block or an obstacle, the intervention is, we'll take more medicine. The suggestion here is that there are so many more levers that we can work with. There's so many more ways that we can work with a person's system that are much more relational in nature. The levers, the interventions are much more psychotherapeutic in nature. Yeah. Point E, the process is not about further symptom management. Psychedelics are not at all interested in better coping strategies. They're interested in going for the heart of what's going on, right? So another way of saying that, folks, and this might be a little controversial, is that the process is not interested in window of tolerance. And I know that that's a beloved concept in the world of therapy. It's a beloved concept in certainly a lot of somatic models, but I feel that that's actually a concept that's going to, make it more complicated or difficult for these models to enter in and start working with psychedelics. Whether it's the PSIP model or what we saw in the MAPS trials, like people would take MDMA and relatively quickly would be so far outside of any reasonable window of tolerance. If you don't know that model, it's the very basics of it is that, there's an optimal range below which it's not therapeutically useful and above which it's not therapeutically useful. So the model basically says, if you're hyper aroused, you can't do effective psychotherapy. If you're hypo aroused, you cannot do effective psychotherapy. We disagree with that. Trauma does not live in the moderate range. Right. And I also know that the idea with that model is that, as you're working in this, then, you'll over time expand that window of tolerance. However, what I can tell you is that, from how I see something like attachment wounding arising in this work, it is so exquisitely painful that I don't think there's any window of tolerance that will ever expand to really getting to what some of these childhood wounds feel like for people. Right. So I think the other way to think about this is, who is the work intolerable for? Whose window of tolerance are we exceeding? Is it your conscious rational mind? Who's the window of tolerance we're exceeding? Probably. I think that's what that model is designed for. My proposal to you is that our archaic consciousness, the signal that I've been describing, has a very different capacities, has very different ways of working. The laws of physics are different there. It's so much more capable of going to these extreme states where trauma lives. Okay. So just kind of put that in your back pocket, even if it's upsetting for me to say that. Point G, destabilization is a necessary part of the process. We often think about destabilization as a negative thing. It's a bad thing. We want to prevent it from happening. I think, one of the reasons why we have the window of tolerance model is to prevent both re-traumatization and destabilization, right? And I'll talk about how we prevent re-traumatization in the PSIP model, which I'll just briefly say we're not worrying about that window. We're much more concerned about the relationship people have as they go to these more extreme places. Yeah. Okay, so in this model, again, back to point G, we're not looking to avoid destabilization. It's necessary. We're looking to support it. All right, so it's just a different orientation around it. And then point H, what you're going to be seeing in these videos is, the scene of the crime that's emerging out of dissociation. Another way we call that is, you're going to see the nightmare that people have built their lives on top of that will be emerging from back here. Yeah, the thing to know is it's always been there. We're not implanting it. We're not implanting ideas. You'll notice in these sessions that there's so little focus on content. There's almost all of the focus is on process. Yeah. So what you will not be seeing, so you're going to see the nightmare emerge here. What you're not going to be seeing for the most part is, what the other side of that looks like, what the transformation side of that looks like. I can describe that to you, but just a heads up on that. All right, folks. So the first video is our first case study here. The medicine that this person is using is 100 milligrams of oral ketamine and a cannabis vape oil. And something you'll notice about this work is that people don't have to do high doses at all. People can do very moderate to even low doses because our container that we're using really sort of amplifies what this process is looking like. So yeah, most people take anywhere from 1 to 3 puffs off of a vape pen, an oil vape pen, to achieve the processing results that you're about to see here. So the past event memory that the person is working with back here in this case study is severe early childhood abuse from mom. It was very severe. And dad was safety, but mom and dad were separated in this person's childhood. And so dad was safe, but inconsistent. This is a short little clip. What you're about to see here is me. I was running the session along with a colleague, a female colleague. And so the transference that was happening is, I was dad. And so his system moved towards me first, and to find that connection, that safety, which even that was, bringing up triggers and charge. And only after he sort of made that contact with me and really, really discovered that I was there through a regressed infantile state, did his system then finally begin to turn towards mom, little by little, to finally, try and renegotiate what that relationship was about. So you're only going to see here just a short little clip of what it was like for him to find me. Let's see. Yeah, keep finding me. Keep finding me. Keep finding me. I think you could tell from that where, there was so much regression there, right? This person didn't have words for this state. It was infantile, and it was just these infantile movements that he was having of touching my face, finding I'm there. And then, it brought up sort of anxiety for him to be looking for me, and then calm as he did find me there. Okay. The medicine that was used in this one is just cannabis. This is, again, an oil vape, 2 to 3 puffs. And the past event memory this person had is of electroconvulsive therapy, ECT. She had it at age 13 from inpatient psychiatric hospitalization. The symptoms that were coming up that caused all of this were depression, suicidality, but the emergence of really severe sexual abuse memories that she was having at age 13. Her family took her to a therapist, and she was talking to a therapist, and the symptoms just became more and more intense. And then basically the process moved towards a psychiatrist that decided that ECT was the way to go here. The way that this lives in this client system is that, she was seeking help. She told a trusted person, a therapist, and the end result was, ECT. So what we see here at the process is an autonomic reenactment of the scene of the crime. In this case, her getting her ECT series involving anesthesia, splitting of consciousness, and expressing attempts at childhood solution. Her attempts at this point that she kept saying to other people that didn't work was, I made it all up. I was tricking you. I was lying. Like, none of this happened to me. The sexual abuse didn't happen to me. So you don't have to do this to me anymore.
Pay attention to the hand. See what it's doing on your forehead. Can you feel it there? Yeah. What's it doing? Can you?
It's pushing.
It's pushing. Yeah. Yeah.
Into my skull.
Yeah.
It's in the center of my. It's gotten into the center of my skull.
Yeah. Stay right there with it.
Pressure. Tons of pressure.
Yeah. Yeah, tons of pressure right at that spot.
And I'm numb.
And the numb. Okay. It just all went numb?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Or I just noticed the numb.
Okay. So let's really pay attention to the numb. And this is not a floating kind of numb, it's just you're here and you're numb?
Okay, so folks, the numbness is an autonomic response. It's a defense mechanism that we'll get into a little bit later here. But also notice, remember, so, how I described that the signal is hell-bent on reenacting, resurrecting the scene of the crime. And what can happen is that it can take body parts and actually have body parts be the implements of perpetration. So we'll see what's happening here with that hand on her head.
Okay.
And I'm trying to tell you that I tricked you.
Yeah.
I'm not really numb.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so does that mean you're still feeling things?
They don't want me to talk anymore.
Yeah.
I can't tell you anything.
Yeah.
Okay, so she's saying out loud, I can't tell you anything, right? So basically, in the resurrection of the scene of the crime, her system is now handing me the role of the therapist that she told this to, and now she's getting ECT. Right?
I can't tell you anything.
Okay, well, stay with that. You can't tell me anything.
Oh, yeah, they will shoot me more. They'll shoot me in the head more. If I tell you things.
Like they're punishing you for telling me things.
Yeah. It's just like they want it to go away. So if I tell you things, it means it's not going away.
Yeah. Yeah, so even if you don't tell me things, I want you to keep feeling that hand and what it's doing. It looks like it's really putting a ton of pressure.
It's erasing things.
It's erasing things, yeah. Yeah. Watch it erase things. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's really working hard to erase things.
All right, folks, I just want to pause it there. Take a breath. she's okay at the end of this. The other thing to note here, and this is speculation on my part, but what's happening with the intensity and the screams that are happening here seem to sort of mimic what happens with the ECT cycles. It's turned on, the current's going, and then it shuts off. So just notice how the intensity in her system is full strength and then just falls off of a cliff, and then full strength again and then falls off of a cliff.
Make it stop! No!
Yeah, feel it. Right there. It's still going.
Oh, God, please.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Did it stop for a bit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So that was the second case study. And what you'll notice is the process is kind of wave-like, meaning that, something that's living in dissociation slowly starts emerging, it starts coming to the surface. They feel different facets of it. It might be kind of fragmentary that they feel. And then when enough of this is at the surface where it's kind of a coherent thing, then the nervous system response begins to turn on, right? And it's a reenactment, and then the person has their nervous system response to it. So basically what we're seeing is this wave pattern where there's an escalation, there's a peaking of symptoms, and there's a gradual calming on the other side, right? So it's being sort of seen and processed and integrated, I would say, on the other side of it. Not to say that there's not more of a need for integration after the session. Certainly there is. Okay, so our final case study here, right? So remember, folks, the first one was ketamine and cannabis. The second one that we just saw is just cannabis, right? This is not any other medicine. It's not like a fancy cannabis or anything like that, right? THC is really what works here. Delta 8 also works. So if you're working in a place or with somebody that cannot have cannabis, Delta 8 works fine. We have students that have graduated that live in parts of the US where cannabis is not legal. They can find Delta 8 there, and some people even prefer the effects of Delta 8 over THC. Right? So this one, our final case study here, is again, just cannabis. The event memory that this person's working with is significant birth trauma. She was born addicted to heroin. So you can imagine sort of what's happening in her poor system. The autonomic regression that we're going to see here is to a very specific aspect of her birth, which was at different points, she had a lot of difficulty breathing. Again, the heroin was kind of, affecting her system that way. Inability to breathe, resulting in very early fear, panic, and overwhelm. That's what we're looking at here. That's the scene of the crime. So in this one, I think it is particularly important to note that there are two levels of reality playing out in the session. There's present moment reality, where this person's an adult, they're in a room, there's nothing going on with their breathing, they can breathe fine. And then the past reality, which is her system is taking her back to.
My jaw is cold.
Yeah. There's more in the jaw, more to go.
Oh God, no.
Sweetie, you're doing great.
I have to do more of that today.
Well, only if you want to. It's your choice. You could ignore it. You can.
What time is it?
We're doing fine on time. Yeah.
I don't want to. I'm scared of it.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Sweetie, can I just say,
Yeah.
You have been going into very scary places and coming out the other side just fine. You've been doing great.
I don't want to.
Okay, you don't have to.
Okay, I guess I can.
Okay.
Okay, so I just want to pause it there for a second, right? First of all, this is a training this is a session that was taking place in a training. Um, and she was doing these beautiful waves, some of what you saw before, right? And so my attempt here is to sort of support her, letting her know that you can trust your system. You've already been doing the processing very scary things. Uh, and, because she's in this kind of point of uncertainty. And of course, consent is incredibly important here. If somebody says no, that's completely fine. A client cannot lose here. Either they go into the process and they're processing trauma really beautifully, or they say no and they're expressing their autonomy. So either way, they win. So she's on the fence here. So I'm like kind of reminding her that she's been doing this really great. And I don't know if you just caught that last little bit there. She said, I don't want to do this. And I said, okay, you don't have to. And then like she didn't miss a beat. Like less than a half second later, she said, okay, I'll do it. It was, it's a lovely little moment there. So we're heading back in. And one of the things that you'll notice with this is just, I don't know how to say it, except for there's these emotional realities. There are these really charged memories that are trapped somatically. And when a person's body enters a particular position, like you'll notice her neck and head at one point will go back like this. And as soon as it goes back, it's like it gives her access to all this entire world. Yeah, so it's bizarre how we work, but we see this very regularly with people, right? That certain physical posturing will open doors.
Okay, I'm supposed to just focus on it, the cold in the jaw.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, focus on the cold in the jaw. Yeah, you're doing great waves.
Okay.
Yeah. See, yeah, I can see the jaw quivering. There you go.
All right, can you see that? Her jaw started quivering, lots of tension and energy happening here. Then she goes back with her head and she just starts to enter this new reality.
There you go. See if it's growing.
My hands are cold.
Hands are cold, yeah.
Oh, my feet are cold.
Feet are cold.
Freezing.
Yeah, you're going into a big cold response. And it'll probably turn hot in a little bit. Just stay with it. Let it get as cold as it needs to.
Oh, I'm shivering cold again.
Yeah.
I really want to curl inside.
Yeah.
I can't do that right.
Well, if the curl is coming by itself, if your muscles are contracting to curl you up, that's fine. Just
I don't know
okay.
what it is.
You feeling the cold? Is that what's happening? Okay.
Freezing.
Yeah.
Okay, so temperature is an autonomic nervous system function, right? So she's going to what we would call cold states, where literally cold is happening, blood flow patterns change in the body. It will, like people, sometimes people get so cold that they feel like their feet or their hands are in buckets of ice water. It's not a mild cold that's happening. She's reporting saying she's freezing.
Yeah, feel every bit of the cold. Feel every piece of it. Feel it growing throughout your body, spreading.
Okay.
What's it doing?
It feels hot.
Okay.
My hands feel really hot.
Yeah. Easy,
My back
easy.
is on hot.
Yeah. Let it happen. Let it happen.
Okay.
Yeah. Slow the movements down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so her system is moving from parasympathetic, cold, dissociative, shutting down to to sympathetic, meaning she's moving much more into activated states now. And again, we're not doing this, right? We're not telling her to go in any direction with this. If her system needed to get more cold and staying there for as long as it needed to, beautiful, we're there for it. But her system's just organically shifting from that cold to this much hotter, sympathetically aroused state.
And let it happen. Yeah. Keep finding the tension in your neck and jaw. Stay right with it. You're doing great. Is it pulling back? There you go. There you go, sweetie. Trust it. Trust it. Let it keep cracking. Let it keep cracking.
Breathe.
Trust that. Trust that. If you
I can't breathe.
Yeah. Easy, easy, easy.
I can't breathe.
Yeah.
There's something on my chest.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, folks, so I thought we would take a moment as she's going into this to remember that there are two layers of reality that are playing out here. So remember, the scene of the crime here is that, she was born addicted to heroin, and maybe even that she was having difficulty breathing. That's past reality. And she's saying, there's something heavy on my chest. Obviously, there's nothing on her chest. It's something being generated by her own system. And we're trusting it because of that. So what is the one thing that she is definitely doing in present moment reality, right? Breathing. She's actually breathing, even though the deep fear there is not breathing.
It's part of the memory. It's part of the memory.
I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I'm really scared.
Yeah. We're right here.
I'm scared.
We're right here.
I'm scared.
Yeah.
I'm scared.
Yeah. We're right here. Yeah, trust the way. Trust it. Trust it. All the way through. You're almost on the other side, sweetie. Yeah.
Okay.
She's really at the high point of the fear of this experience, right? Like, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I'm scared. I'm scared. That's kind of the layering that's probably not allowed in the window of tolerance model. But here, we're really trusting the signal. We're really trusting that her system is taking her here for a reason. What I probably, if I was doing this session today, this was, when pretty early in this model, but I would probably offer more relational support. Like, I would probably have offered, if she wanted to take my hand before getting to this point, and said something like, okay, if this gets really scary, go ahead and squeeze the hell out of my hand, right? Just really kind of pour all the fear that you're having into my hand. It's a way of, having more relationship, and that really kind of, supports people through the wave. But she had enough. She had enough internal resources, internal trust in her system that she was able to do that wave without that external addition of more support. Right, but you can tell here that she's turning the corner. She's on the other side of the wave. She knows it's not going to destroy her, right? So that's the real beauty of this model, folks. So that once people do, I don't know, anywhere from like 2 or 3 of these waves of going into their autonomic nervous system, taking them into this place where they think that they're going to die, right? and they don't die, right? They survive it. And once they've had that 2 or 3 times, their system recognizes that, wait a minute, maybe all of these places that I've had to hold in dissociation are just like that, right? So there is a deep intrapsychic trust that gets established for people once they've completed, just a few of these waves. So I would call it like a visceral myth that's being exposed for what it truly is, right? This is not going to destroy you. So yeah. So let's finish it.
Keep letting go into it.
Okay.
Keep letting go into it. Yeah. Uh-huh.
I feel warm.
Yeah.
I feel warm.
Yeah. What? Is that pressure still on your chest?
No.
Okay.
All right. So yeah, I don't know if you were able to hear, but I after she's completed this wave and things are settling down, I asked her, "Is that pressure still on your chest?" And she said, "No." All right. Just so you know, this is the clinician that just a couple of years later, she did a case study that got published in Frontiers in Psychiatry of a complex PTSD client with a dissociative subtype. She just used cannabis, 10 sessions, and she was using, she had used EMDR with this person, she'd used IFS, she had this client for some period of time, and then they started working with cannabis, doing PSIP, and after 10 sessions, this person had a 98.5% reduction in her dissociative symptoms. And we actually have that case study on our website if you want to take a look at it. I thought I would pause here, not quite for questions, because remember, we're just having you write down questions and then we'll get to them at the end. But I wanted to check in with the room. Julian, do you have any thoughts or anything to add to the moment here?
I'm a bit concerned for the people looking because I know it's a little bit intense, but having been there myself, it's not as scary as it looks once you're in it. That's my experience. And there's like and I do agree with Saj. Once you do a few of these, you just trust in the process, and part of me sort of almost looks forward to when these things come on and sort of knows that there's going to be an end on the other side. So I can validate what you're saying, Satya.
Yeah. Thank you, Julian, for that. Yeah, folks, when I present this work to graduate students, they're upset with me. They're angry. And my response is, what are we doing here? What did I do in those sessions? Did at any point did I put pressure on this client's chest? Did I tell them to sort of hold their breath? Did I tell them to go into these responses? The answer is no, right? All we're doing is holding a container where they're not managing or escaping themselves. Their own bodies are taking them into this place. So unless you're willing to say that, there's something so fundamentally wrong about us as a species, there's something fundamentally wrong about our biology that it does this, then I propose we begin to trust what our systems are doing. The very first thing, the act of giving birth, is outside of the window of tolerance, right? It is so extreme what our bodies can accomplish. But the thing is, it's not our ordinary conscious minds that accomplish that. We go into a non-ordinary state of consciousness, and we can do things in those states that we cannot do in ordinary consciousness. So I propose we stop, we don't build psychological models for ordinary states of consciousness anymore. We build it for these other states that are capable of processing much more deeply. Okay, wonderful, everyone. So there is so much more we could talk about in terms of the maps that we use, the modeling that we have of the autonomic nervous system and how it responds to threat, how it responds in a psychedelic session. We could talk about the interventions that we have to evoke and work with negative transference, which almost always shows up when there's sort of complex relational trauma in a person's system. And I would say that's the advanced level of the PSIP model, but we don't have time for that at all in 45 minutes. So let me leave it here. Let me wrap up this with this big picture perspective. Yeah. So my hope is that you can see why we're so excited about this. The responses that you saw in the session videos, they're not unique. We see this type of processing commonly in our trainings. We see it in private practice sessions. And even though this is a training container, people will still go to the core of what crushed them. They'll go to the thing that they've been working on in therapy to try and resolve for years. The process takes them to their attachment wounding, to their developmental trauma, or to the most hopeless place that they have inside of themselves. The thing is that they won't be doing it alone. We go in with them the entire time. Yeah, so you will have a really closely held, well-attuned relationship the entire time that you're feeling the nightmare that your life is built on top of. This is why our apprentice trainings are only 3 people in size. But let me hold off on that. I'll talk about that in just a bit. So even though whatever it is that lives back here is intense for people, yeah, it can be destabilizing. It can be well outside of your window of tolerance. It's also completely you. Yeah, it's organically a part of you, and your life energy is innately tied into it. And the act of healing is like giving birth. There's something, it's so much bigger than your tip of the iceberg, conscious, rational mind. And it takes over and guides the process. Yeah. So you don't think your way through giving birth, and you don't think your way through this depth of healing. This subconscious intelligence is right under your feet. It's there for all of us. And what we're doing in the PSIP model, which, by the way, I know I haven't mentioned this before, but it stands for Psychedelic Somatic Interactional Psychotherapy. So what we're doing in the model is that we're building a container that signal can finally be heard and felt and trusted. So we are calming all the things in you that distrust and suppress the signal. And what we naturally see is a trust that develops between you and this much deeper version of you that just takes over. It's not a thought, it's not a verbal dialogue in language, it's a visceral guidance that takes over. So you're going to be there, you're feeling it all, you're along for the ride, but this deeper intelligence is the one that's orchestrating the real healing here. So this is our why as an organization. This is why I personally am going to be doing this work for the rest of my life. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Yeah, so I jokingly say this to our students as they graduate, that you're part of the infected now. You can never unsee this quality of our nature, this ground that's under all of our feet. And I think the really good news about it is that this connection that you establish, this nervous system pathway that you establish, is always going to be with you whenever you have future traumas. Once it's there, once the pathway is there, it's always going to be there for you. And to me, this is both good news in terms of in a very personal way, but in a much larger, collective, existential way in terms of what it means for all of us. So now, in terms of how to get trained in this modality, yeah, we have what we call an apprentice training, because as I mentioned earlier, our in-person experiential courses only have 3 students. And as you've seen from the videos, the combination of cannabis or ketamine with this nervous system pathway really goes deep in people's systems. Yeah, so we learned very, very early on that we cannot hold this process for more than 3 people at a time. And, even though there's a great need for this kind of work, it doesn't change the fact that you cannot learn psychedelic therapy on a 100-person Zoom call or in a lecture class. You can only learn it from the inside out through your own personal engagement with the process. You can only work with people from your own personal knowing of the process. I think that's a good way of putting it, from your own position of trust within the process. So the first part of our training is a 5-day in-person experiential with cannabis and ketamine, and it will be one of the deepest dives into your unconscious mind, into your childhood programming, into your process that you will have ever taken. So we reliably get that feedback, even from students that have done a lot of psychedelic work in the past. Our end goal with this is that you are providing above ground, fully legal psychedelic therapy in your private practice. Again, there's an enormous demand for this work because both therapists and clients want to move beyond symptom management. They know there's more to life than just managing wounds and hobbling along. And we all want this. We all want to live full lives. And because of this, people are going to the underground. They're going to Peru. They're doing their own sessions alone. And some of this can be helpful. There's no doubt about it. But I think there's a whole lot of it, of what's out there, that is not done in a good container for what people with trauma really need. Yeah. We've been training students in this work since 2008. We've been working clinically with these medicines in private practice settings for over 10 years, and you can do it too. In states where cannabis is legal, the legislatures have made PTSD one of the conditions for getting a medical marijuana card. So it's a doctor recommended thing. And of course, ketamine is also a prescription drug, which is all to say that you cannot get in the way of these doctor recommendations for your client. It's patient-doctor privilege, and you cannot interfere with that any more than you can tell a client to not take Prozac or not use Xanax when they're working with you. Yeah. So, folks, this is all to say that, again, psychedelic therapy is here. We don't have to wait for MDMA. We don't have to wait for the FDA to approve anything. Everything that you saw in those videos is fully above ground. It's legal work. we record it and have it on our website. You can do this now with your clients. The final thing I'll remind you about is that you and I can have a half-hour sit-down consultation. And we ask that for you to accept this offer, that you're either a mental health professional or you have a non-traditional healing arts background, but it has to be in a psychotherapy modality, such as Gestalt or a psychodynamic training, IFS, Hakomi, or SE. And we ask that you're certified in that and that you've had experience working in a mental health context. You can treat this as a very informal supervisory consultation, and we can talk about anything, really. We can talk about your own experiences using psychedelics for your personal healing. If you want to talk about, if you're doing psychedelic therapy with clients and you want to talk about a client case, we're happy to talk about that. If you have specific questions about this modality or anything about the training, happy to talk about any of those things, right? So we charge $250 for this, but specifically because you've watched this video and you've spent your time and energy with us, we're offering it to you at no cost. So all you have to do is use the phrase "happy monkey" in the consultation form below, and that gets you the $250 off. Again, just plug in "happy monkey" when you sign up, and it will be free. I urge you to take us up on that offer. I love hearing from you and looking at your psychedelic work through this particular lens. Okay, folks, thank you for your time, your commitment to healing, and taking this deep dive with us. Take care. Bye-bye.